Oh, that's all right, because, later on when we're trying to figure out whether I said anything, I'll forget, so there you go. Thank you very much. That's why we do COLEs and OVE. So people can help us remember the things we forget. Today's discussion is thinking about 2025 priorities and driving more volunteer engagement. And the reason I chose that topic is Nancy Lamont, who is the EVP and Chief of Advocacy. No, I guess what is she? Chief Advocacy and Engagement Officer, I think is her very big title here. She puts out information on every Sunday. And on January 5th, she put out an email that says Happy New Year and 2025 priorities. So I said, if we're going to start out with this beginning of the 7th year, we might as well start out with the priorities that CSN has determined are going to be important for all of us as we go forward. I don't know, maybe by hands, how many of you have had a chance to see that list? Because I'm not going to read the whole thing to you because it's like 4 pages long. And that would mean that's all we need to do today, is for me to just stand here and read information, which is not the way we do this. But the topics and I guess the priorities that she's identified for 2025, along with the L team, are advancing caregiving advocacy and support, strengthening grass tops and grassroots engagement. And of course, grass tops for them is how we do our advocacy. It's a little bit different from the way we've had to over the years. Starving the internal beast, which is, she talks about, is AARP's tendency to spend more time coordinating internally than focusing on the external results that matter. And I can imagine that if you've come to this exchange, you're really interested in the external results that matter. Focusing on talent development and tangible 2025 goals. And when she talks about talent development, she's talking not only about staff, but about volunteers as well. Because if we're not using our volunteer skills in the way that they need them to be used to have a successful journey for them, we're leaving something on the table for the organization. And her next topic was driving more volunteer engagement and support and elevating AARP's community impact. And so those are the priorities that she's identified for CSN. And as a part of OVE and being sponsored by OVE, because I'm a volunteer like a lot of us are, CSN is where we go in that hierarchy. So today, again, our discussion is about thinking about 2025 priorities and beginning the process to drive more volunteer engagement. So, Dr. Clark, would you like to start with the first question? Is that okay?
Sure. And before I start, I just again want to say welcome to everybody to our first 360 exchange for 2025. And for those of you who have added your states to your name, thank you very much. Those of you who have not, if you can do that by changing your name, or if that is not possible, just put it in the chat and Deborah and I will add it to your name. We always like to know who's in the room, and it's always helpful if someone says something that you're interested in, you can then know what state they're coming from and circle back to that state to get that information from them. So the first question, I will read it and then I'll place it in chat, is how do we manage priorities and priority setting when we cannot see what's coming around the corner? So how do we kind of project and predict priority setting when we really don't know all the things that are going to happen? The second part of that question is, what does it take to encourage volunteer curiosity and actionable flexibility? Because some of us, we are not comfortable with ambiguity, so we want to know some details. But we know for AARP, sometimes we don't always have all the details. We need to be prepared with our priorities, even when we don't know what's coming. So does anyone have a response? And I see, Rob, you have your hand up. What are you doing in Overland Park, Kansas?
Oh,
Oh,
you
we
muted.
can't hear you. Uh,
Rob?
we don't think your microphone is connected. Maybe we see your mouth moving, but we don't hear anything. And when you muted, we saw that your mic popped up in the corner. So you might need to go to the lower left-hand corner and change the setting in your microphone, because I had that problem with my microphone before too. And I think Zoom settings sometimes changes that for us when we don't want it changed.
Does that work any better?
That works perfectly.
Yes.
Okay, good. I haven't had to deal with, usually the computer decides and there we go. Right now in Overland Park, we're dealing with the melting 11 inches of snow that we got a week and a half ago.
Wow.
The roads are in pretty good shape, so not a big problem. As to your question, I ran a organization, a financial services organization for 11 or 12 years. And we'd have our strategic planning sessions and you say, this is what we need to do. And, you know, away you go. And you try to factor in the realities of politics and the economy and local, you know, whatever. And the reality is you factor those in, but you still got to set your priorities and then be flexible and reactive when some of those unknowns pop up to either discard, raise or lower your objectives, or find new ways to attain them. So I don't think you cower in the closet with fear for I don't know what's coming, so therefore I'll do nothing. I think you have to set your priorities as best you can. It's sort of like budgets. I never worry about how far I'm above or below a budget because those were estimates in the first place. So let's just do the best we can operationally and learn from the mistakes in our budgeting process for the next cycle.
Thank you very much. That's a great perspective and a great way to handle it. Thanks, Rob. Sandra.
Hi, I'm actually going to really just echo everything Rob just said because I'm coming out of corporate as well. So there was always the setting of strategic goals and then your GNOs for you specifically, goals and objectives. And I just thought it was an interesting conversation we had earlier today because I was on a CAT meeting and we were asking about that and it all seemed to be just kind of vague at the moment. So if we don't have that, then of course everyone's kind of doing their own thing and it's good. There's really a lot of grassroots efforts for people doing things they have passion around, but I just really had the feeling this morning, it was kind of, I don't know if there was something that was not in place yet, if it usually happens later, but yeah, it just felt like we were waiting for things. So I guess that's just a perspective, not so much, you know, do something, don't do something, as just observation.
And thank you very much, Sandra. Sometimes that waiting, when we know that there's a lot to be done and there are some plans in works, but
We're
that
all
waiting,
anxious to start, right? I
Right.
know what you mean. I know what you mean.
we want to get out there and get into the community and do what we do.
Yeah,
We want
might
to
as well just go.
thank you. Iris, what's going on in Virginia?
Well, I will admit I'm a new volunteer to AARP. I just started about a month ago. Also from, corporate and nonprofit world. And when we used to set our goals, we do it on several different levels. So you have the very high level things that are sort of the vision, the mission, that type of thing. And then you'd have your high level goals, which were a little more general. And then they'd be a little bit more specific, and you could continue to develop those throughout, the first couple of quarters of the year as you figured out what, was going to be thrown your way, because it does, legislation changes. We're probably going to get a lot of big surprises this year. So that allows you the flexibility, and usually, we'd hold sort of a revisit to the goals by, no later than mid-year to go, okay, do these still fully make sense, or do we need to modify them?
Thank you. Wonderful perspective as well. Lillian?
Yes, I'm going to speak from the viewpoint of a volunteer. I think as a volunteer, if we know ahead of time that there may be changes that we can foresee, or that those who are working to make the changes foresee, that they will give volunteers a tidbit. There might be changes coming, be aware of this, any input that you would like to have. And I guess as a volunteer, it's important for me personally to know if changes will occur, and you don't have to give me the details because you may not have the details initially, but at least forewarn me, things may be changing. What is your perspective on this? As soon as I know, I'll let you know. And then I think you'll keep volunteers engaged by that way of keeping them informed as best possible.
Thank you. Yes, I certainly echo some of your sentiments as well regarding how will my time be used, and which things will there be that I can devote my time to genuinely and without hesitation. And I think there'll be a collective sigh of relief when we know some things specifically. So thank you for sharing that, Lillian. Josephine?
Thank you. I want to echo what everyone has said. And I want to talk a little bit about not knowing what's coming around the corner, right? It's like brace yourself. But I think we can manage our expectations and our priorities despite knowing what's coming around the corner when we've identified what our goals are, how we're going to get to those goals, who's going to be involved. And that is a constant thing. That is something that is like a structural component to the work. So you build some structure around your work, and then it's kind of like building a slide, right? You get up, you go down, woo, all the way. It's just crazy all the way down, and then you go up and you do it again, right? So I think as long as we have some structure that we know that we can fall back on, then no matter what comes down the pike, we'll be able to say within the structure, we can sit back and, reassess and then make whatever adjustments we need. But in terms of volunteering, being a community person myself and understanding the importance of walking gently into the community, and first identifying and recognizing the leaders in the community, what's been done, what's going on, and how you can join in those efforts and bring your work alongside what's already being done. There's nothing that the community hates more than being told what the issues are and how they're going to work on those issues. They know what the answers are to the problems in their community, and they can work together. And what a better way to build ownership and just engagement that is sustainable and that will just take a life of its own and the community can take it on. So you build curiosity by listening first. So I can't emphasize enough the importance of listening to your community first. Always go in and listen first. So that's what I wanted to ask.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Yes, and sometimes those listening posts provide us with many opportunities to not only engage our community more deeply, but perhaps even gain another volunteer or two because they see that we hear them. Um, I'm thinking as I'm thinking, and I have a second part to that question that I'll ask in just a few moments. But during the beginning of the year, it's always a good time from a volunteer's perspective just to check in with the volunteers to see if their issues and priorities have changed or their interest in what they want to work on. So maybe even that can be part of the conversation as the priorities are being set or established, just to find out if volunteers have added some new things that they might want to tackle this year, if they want to be on the speakers bureau or do the do-it-yourself kits and present those, or perhaps this past election year has inspired them to want to take on an advocacy role, and they previously weren't an advocacy position. And so, those are the kind of things that it might be good just to take a pulse of the volunteers and see perhaps if there's been some changes, because you might even get some new volunteers with the volunteers that you have because their roles might evolve or change or enhance. So just a thought. But yes, because that's what I'm doing for myself, is rethinking how I want to use my time as a volunteer, both in my state and nationally. And so I don't think that I had that thought last year, a year ago this time, because of the past year that I've had, because of priorities that have changed in my life. And again, if we provide opportunities for volunteers to do the things that they enjoy and that they're good at doing, volunteers step up so naturally and so easily. So I'm taking my own word and listening to myself on that one. So the second part of my question is kind of in the same lines as that, is what will it take to make certain that volunteers are prepared for likely challenges of 2025 in advocacy and programmatic growth? And are there new processes or approaches we can use to help ensure success in these uncertain times? And what in our prior experience will help to prepare us for the present and the future? So 3 separate questions. If you have an answer to one of them or more than one of them, we'd love to hear your input. So what can you do to help volunteers prepare for the challenges? And I see we have a couple of new people that have joined. Welcome. And if you can add your state to your name or put it in the chat, we'll be glad to add it to your name for you. Does anybody have any responses to any of those questions? Josephine?
If you're taking the pulse and if you're listening, you're going to identify what their training needs are, right? And so we have a lot of training opportunities and we want to build up our core so that they feel like they not only are important to us and that we're making an investment in them, but that we're also equipping them to be more successful and feel confidence when they go out there to do the work. So we want to equip them. We want to just empower them and give them everything that they need. So I think that that is a really smart investment. And while we're doing that, like Dr. Clark said, we're going to identify the skills among those that are participating that we can tap into at the same time. So this is a give and take. And this is how you work with community. You give of yourself, you take what they have, you respect that, you honor it, and then you empower them. And I think training, we have some good stuff in our portal that's already available that we can easily, make available to our volunteers. I know for myself when I joined the ARP, all of the opportunities that are available in the portal, I've taken so many of those. I love it. And it's really a nice place, and it's a good thing for me as a volunteer to know that I can sit down, and if I'm working on a project and I need a specific skill, I can either reach out through the portal to the people that are in there already, and or I can take one of those classes. I took a learning path this morning. I learned so much. It's awesome. So when we empower people, and we make them feel like, hey, I can do this. There's no telling what that person's going to do with us and for us, and who else they're going to bring into the fold.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful response and for using the portal and the trainings. Anyone else? Lillian.
Yes. As I think about this question, I first think about my state office, and we have 5 regions and an associate state director. She's in her 2nd year, but she has come in what I call running, really getting to know all of her volunteers, wanting to assess their skills. She hasn't just depended on the leadership team to give her guidance. She's asked for guidance from all of the volunteers. She's pushing them or asking or gently nudging them to do more, to go out and find a new experience. Right now, it's only 2 of us that do brain health. I don't know what it is about brain health. I can't find anyone to want to do that one. But anyway, we are working to get others to do these DIY presentations other than the same people. And so I think for a partnership with your associate state director, that's important to our volunteers. We want our region to shine. We want our region to be one of the best in North Carolina, or the best maybe, but anyway, in North Carolina. So therefore, we have volunteers who are willing to take a risk, who are willing to say, oh, I'll go to that training, or I'll participate in X, Y, or Z. And then even knowing that there will be budget cuts per se, we don't know to the extent of what yet, because our ASD has been very positive in her outlook on the way the budget is. And I think that's going to be important for the volunteers, because you don't want to let volunteers know that there's a possibility that something may not work out because of funding, but you have to be creative and come up with another means that will be less cost effective when it comes to supporting your volunteers. So I think the partnership with your associate state director is going to be critical when you're looking at increasing the number of volunteers and increasing the resources to them, and just being positive with them, letting them know that you support them. You are the ones that they really need to, we do the job, or some of the jobs for the associate state directors, and they love it. They love it. So just a partnership with your state office, I think, is going to be critical.
Thank you, Lillian. And I agree. Mary, what's going on in New Hampshire?
So I think all of these ideas are really great. And I also think communication plays a big factor in making the volunteers aware of what they can contribute and what the opportunities are there. Like right now, I know in community, I'm going to react. We have 2 sub-teams. One is a Fun with Purpose team, and the other is a communications team. And I want to reactivate that, because during the holidays, when everything was at a lull, I got emails from volunteers saying, okay, can we do this and can we do that? And some even took the initiative of actually making a contact with various organizations to see if we could have some possible events. And they know that it's all possibilities, because it's kind of like you let them, everybody just throws out all the ideas and you find out which ones will stick. And you can't do everything. You have to be realistic about that. You just can't possibly do everything. But you can say, okay, well, we can do this, and maybe next year we'll do that, or maybe next quarter we'll do that, or we'll think about doing that. I know in our advocacy efforts, the ASD there has got some committees going, working on various projects, and they're kind of smaller groups. So that they can kind of like, one's working on a legislative lunch, one is following bills on prescription drugs. One is following on the budget because it's a budget year in New Hampshire. So I think you have a big picture, but if you can hone it down and have these little groups working together, that also gives the volunteers more opportunities to kind of bubble up a little bit. And that's all I got to say.
Well, that was very helpful, very useful, and we appreciate your input. Thank you. In the chat, Sandra says that she is looking for some softer skill trainings in the portal, such as communications, community engagement. Anyone have any comments on that? I know we have so much in the portal. And some of the libraries are not as intuitive to navigate as others. Has anybody found any soft skills like that? Or in your own volunteer group, have there been any trainings or offerings that your group has given on soft skills communication? Rob?
Yeah, I almost hate to say this, but YouTube, there is almost nothing you can want to learn that you can't find somewhere on YouTube if you frame the question right. So if it's not in the portal, to do it exactly the AARP way or some other, free resource, go ask YouTube. It is amazing what's out there.
And I thank you for that often used and sometimes underutilized resource that we have at our fingertips 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Thank you. Sandra.
Yeah, and that's really great because I actually didn't know that. And I guess I was trying to think about the first question you asked is about preparing for uncertainty because we're actually in the Washington, D.C. area, Northern Virginia. So it's everywhere. What does the year look like? So it comes back to I think what someone was saying earlier about communication. So if you're going to have to be a little more flexible this year until we figure out how the world's going to shift, it really is just about helping people with that process and just being very clear, like just being open about, well, we just don't know yet and we're waiting to see, or it shifted left. How do we shift left? And then getting kind of that bubble up approach that she was also talking about as well, so that everyone feels engaged in that change process, which can be really difficult.
It can. Thank you. Lily?
Yes, first, Happy New Year to everyone. What an important group this is. Didn't realize it's in its 7th year. Congratulations. May I build upon that concept of softer and then also another C? I think we're all sometimes, not we at ARP, but the world is focused on metrics and how many petitions were signed or how many people donated or whatever. I think one of the magic of ARP is the building of community. I think we haven't told that story enough. During the pandemic, offering the online gatherings, being able to pilot, because a lot of people think seniors don't use technology. We built community through webinars. We build community through all the different things. So I think we should really toot that story of, in this era where the Surgeon General is talking about social isolation, loneliness, the fact that we have community, and in some states across, political lines or whatever, we have a community that we reach out to. People check on each other. They gather and see each other at the tabling events. Once you've tabled, you're friends for life. So I think we really should think about tooting that aspect of what we have accomplished in American social history of building community. And that's something ARP should really be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you. And Madeline.
Greetings, colleagues. I'm Madeline from Anchorage, Alaska, state president In both the questions that you have posed to us, Dr. Clark, I see a lack of recognition of the careers and experiences of our volunteers. Throughout my work experience, and I don't think I'm alone in this, there has always been something new around the corner, whether it was the mag card, then came the different computer things that we all experienced, and then it was and I began as a stenographer, and all of a sudden stenographers were not needed anymore because of voice transcription. So I'd like to give more credit to our volunteers. There is such a strength in our Alaska volunteers to maintain the status quo and keep those program areas out there in front of people. And strengthening our current priorities will make us stronger to accept modifications to those in the future. So it's just a reminder from me. And I see a bit of a tone in your questions. You know, I see uncertain times. I see things that people may not be prepared for. And I would prefer a more positive approach to the future and how we address things as they come our way. And again, recognizing that all of our volunteers have been around the block, have had careers, and have expectations for the future, no matter what stage we're in. Thank you.
For your input. Yes. Certainly the interpretation of the questions are in the eye of the beholder. So thank you so much. There was no intent on a negative connotation at any point in these questions. So thank you for your reminder. One of the things that I would like to say about the communication styles, our group, the Volunteer Facilitation and Training Group, went through a training for communication styles, and it's something that we've offered to several other states and volunteer groups. It is called Success Signals, and not only does it familiarize us with our own communication styles and the communication styles of others, but as volunteers in the community, it helps us to address the styles of differing people, not so much to change their perspective or to change how they respond, but for us to be able to meet them where they are. And so that is a skill training that many of us on the volunteer facilitation and training team have been through in order to facilitate that for various groups. And so that's one way to find a way to enhance those softer skills. If your state is interested in having the success signals administered to your volunteer team, you can reach out to our staff partners, which would be Tara, Kathy Kynes, and they would be glad to connect you with how we can help out with that as a large group. Deborah, I think we spent enough time on my section of the questions. How about yours?
Oh, thank you, Dr. Mary. And thank you to all of you so far who have made comments. It's wonderful. And Madeline, I want you to know that you are the perfect lead-in. Your comments were the perfect lead-in to this next section. And that is where we were thinking in terms of questions. It's how do we retain the volunteers who have so much experience and get that experience to use? What do we have to do to make sure that we are enriching their experiences and keeping them engaged? That's what I'm trying to figure out by our next set of questions here. So thank you very much for moving us right into that. Okay, because I think that is a positive. I think being able, and this is something we try to make sure that everyone who comes to these meetings understands that our volunteers come with a range of experiences, and we've got to be able to use all of those for the benefit of the team, the organization, the mission. And at the same time, we have to make the journey for those volunteers something that is rewarding for them. So thank you. Thank you. Those are my comments, and I'm almost done. Any additional thoughts on the topics that we've had today? I see Linda. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to share something that I was at a meeting earlier with Joyce and Josephine, that it was some comments that Tara made that I thought were really good. And it's when you get together with your volunteers again for the new year, use some Post-its and ask 3 questions of these folks. And the questions are, what do you like to do? What are you good at? And what do you not want to do? And I just thought that was brilliant, because it gives you an idea of where you can go next with your volunteers, or what you might need to do as a training with them, or even, you know, just open other kinds of possibilities. So I just wanted to share that with the group, and I'm sorry I was a little late to the meeting. For some reason, I am no longer the volunteer state president for Vermont as of December. And for some reason, I haven't gotten any emails. So I've gotten completely wiped off all of these things. I'm trying to find out through Lindsay, our coordinator for the region, why all of a sudden I'm not getting newsletters and things along those lines. I just not, you know, losing the plot here. Anyway, I just wanted to offer that to you folks, because I'm evaluating things too with my life now that I've got, you know, no communication with anybody, but a new role. And yeah, just trying to figure out where I'm going.
Great. Well, thank you, Linda. Those comments are wonderful. And we've got to find out why you're not getting email. Because Lord knows we want you to get as much as we do. That's for sure.
Oh, thank you so much, Deborah.
Okay. I'm going to put I actually put it in chat, and I'm going to let it go now. We actually have the list of topics and themes for 2025. That is now completed. I'm sorry, I'm about a week late over when we normally would get that out, but I'm pretty excited about some of the things that we're going to talk about this year. One of the items is we're going to talk about self-care for volunteers. It's another way to make sure that we're helping to make the experience for volunteers just the best it can possibly be. So we've got an expert coming on to talk about that with us and to help lead us in the discussion. That's not going to be until April, but before that, we had some people ask about how can we have a panel discussion, for example. And so in March, we're going to talk about developing staff and leadership volunteer participation with a panel of people who have been chosen because they've been self-selecting, and we know that they believe in enhancing volunteer engagement and have good experience in that. So you'll be able to ask them questions. We've got things going all the way through this year, trying to make sure that we've got more people coming in to talk about their lived experiences and share those experiences in ways that make it useful for us to replicate and pass that on. AARP Way is coming out in February, and we'll be talking about that next month as well. So there are videos and presentations tied to it. If you've not seen it, it's a little bit different from some of the things that we've done. So I'm excited for this year. I'm glad that we're going to continue for one more year. But please know that when you look at the list of topics, if you don't see something that speaks to you or that you can use, let us know, because there may be some way we can make that change. We always try to do it every 6 months for sure. So, we'll try to make changes in terms of what we're talking about and who we're bringing in to help us. So I want to thank all of you for that. I will put Nancy's email in the chatter group, which we have, that's called The Exchange. The themes and topics list is already there. So if you want to print it, download it, feel free. And of course, registration, we've been still using the same Zoom link for, I think, 5 years now. So that continues, and you can register. We've got about 480 people on the mailing list now. So even if they don't all show up for the meetings, they do get the materials and are passing some of that information around. So thank you very much for that. Joyce, I believe you've got your hand up, huh?
I do. Thank you. Did you say that AARP Way is going to be the focus in February?
That is going to be part of the focus, yes.
Okay, good, great. I just want to say to the volunteers here from Virginia, thank you all for joining this group. It is an awesome group, especially for those of you who are new to volunteering here in Virginia. And Martin, I know you're not new, but it's so good to see your flag and eagle here with us. So thank you, and thank you all for continuing to do this for at least another year.
Great. Thank you, Joyce, for the kind words, and really appreciate it. And let's see, Rob, you've got a comment for us?
Well, I was just thinking it sort of surprised me. You said you had over 400 on the mailing list for this, and checking the banner at the bottom of the screen, we've got 16 people. So if we're talking about a lab to figure out how to get people engaged, perhaps this very chat group is that. And it's not all about metrics, but it's about, what is it about this that is not engaging the 384 other people that are on the mailing list, and how do we make it do so? And then we can learn from that process. So, I think the value of this is substantial, and the other 384 are missing out on the value. So how do we, I always, when I had meetings, I always had to say, what is it about this meeting that makes it more important than anything else on somebody's calendar? And so what is it about this meeting that makes it compelling for those who are not joining us every time?
Right. And that becomes a challenge for sure.
And Deborah, if I could just add to what Rob is saying.
Yes, ma'am.
Compelling for me is the opportunity for volunteers and staff members to have a open and flowing dialogue about things that we can implement and use across the enterprise, immediately. So I don't think there's a forum that exists like this. And those of us who come and we've found the jewels and the golden eggs that we get here, and we take it back to our volunteer teams, we realize the value. So I don't know what the secret is, but I know that I show up because I know that I'll always get something from those who are here to share in the conversation. So continue to spread the word. And Virginia, thanks for showing up in mass, because we appreciate when a state shows up 2, 3, 4 deep.
Right. And so thank you all very much. We keep these meetings at 45 minutes, and it turns out that there are other parts of the organization. Nancy Lamond is one who's decided that her meetings can only be 45 minutes. She called one day and asked me, why did you do that? And I explained, and she put that in a memo, and I said, maybe we don't get everyone here, but we certainly do make a difference. You are making a difference. So thank you very much for this. We have recorded it. We'll post the recording. And that may be also an issue because we always post the recording. You don't have to come to the meeting. You can still find out what we did. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Lily, for your comments. And I suggest that you all read Lily's comments in the chat or read it on the posting when it's in the portal.
Yes.
It's very meaningful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, Lillian,
I'm sorry. I was trying to put something in the chat and I realized that I sent it directly to one person. But anyway, when you were talking about engaging volunteers or keeping those seasoned volunteers, I thought about to make sure that we connect them with a new volunteer, let them mentor that volunteer. I know recently, personally, I worked so hard on a program, and instead of being the administrator for it, I thought, why should I do this? There are other volunteers who can be the administrator. So I'm going to work in the background, but I asked this other lady who's interested in technology also to be the administrator. So some seasoned volunteers need to be encouraged or let them know how important it is to help someone else who's wanting to be just as well knowledge as they are about volunteering. So that was what I was talking about.
Thank you very much, Lillian. That's a very important thing. Okay, we are at the end of our time. I don't want to keep you any longer. Thank you very much.
See you
Have a
next
good night.
month.
See you
Have
next
a great
month.
day. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Let's see, okay. Madeline, she's gone, and Martin. Need to get Martin off. I'm having, it looks like
I
you
have
got it. Okay. Because my internet must be weird because it's been flipping. All the pictures are flipping back and forth. So it was really hard to focus here, trying to figure out what's going on.
Stop the recording.